Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well, having a good Monday. Now, of course, coming out of NXT TakeOver War Games last night, there is a ton of news to get into. So we'll get straight into the news, but we are going to talk about something other than NXT TakeOver first in the lead story today, and that is going to be about AEW. Specifically, we're going to talk about Sting. Now, obviously, coming out of Dynamite last week, it was incredibly newsworthy. That special Winter is Coming edition of AEW Dynamite. People were talking about Kenny Omega being the new AEW World Champion, talking about this potential AEW and Impact Wrestling working relationship going forward. But of course, a lot of people as well were talking about the debut of Sting, the former WCW icon, WWE Hall of Famer, making his first appearance for AEW and signing with the promotion. It was later revealed that he had signed a multi-year deal with AEW as a full-time character and would be appearing every single week on Dynamite, including this week, where he'll talk for the first time on AEW TV. But this has led to discussion and questioning about Sting, what happened when it comes to his previous WWE deal, what happened there, and most importantly, why is he in AEW right now? Now, of course, Sting was released from his WWE deal earlier this year, back in May, and his merchandise was taken down from WWEshop.com last month. This, of course, led to a lot of people thinking, well, he's going to go to AEW. Let's be honest, the debut of Sting last week in AEW, the fact that he signed with AEW, that isn't really a surprise. I think a lot of people saw that coming, considering it's AEW on TNT, the previous WCW connections. We've seen that with Eric Bischoff showing up on the show, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard. There is definitely a WCW feel when it comes to AEW on TNT. The good version, not the bad WCW. Nevertheless, Sting's appearance last week was a surprise. His signing wasn't. But what happened when it comes to his WWE deal, and what happens when it comes to that whole run that he had in WWE? Well, it's been reported by WrestleTalk's Lewis Dangor that Sting was unhappy with how WWE treated him during his time with the company. It's also been reported that he joined AEW to do, quote, something good for the fans in his final full-time role. Now, this comes after it was reported in the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter by Dave Meltzer that Sting, while under contract with WWE, had a strong desire to have a cinematic match with The Undertaker in WWE. Now, of course, this whole dream match, when it comes to Sting and The Undertaker, has been something that's talked about and fabled for years. I think most fans, by this point, even over the course of the last 3 years, realised that it was never going to happen, and if anything, it was better served in our fantasies, in our it was a dream match that I think it jumped the shark, right? No one had really any interest in seeing it over the last couple of years because we knew what it would really be at this point. There had been rumours about potentially happening a Saudi Arabia show and all that kind of stuff. Regardless, I think everyone just went, you know what, it's better served being in our imaginations at this point. We don't need to see Sting and The Undertaker. We could have seen it on multiple occasions. It was very close on a couple of occasions. WrestleMania 27, of course, straight after WCW folded in 2001. There's always been discussions, and for a variety of reasons, it never happened. Even when Sting was under contract in that run in 2015, he wanted to do The Undertaker match, and The Undertaker, quite frankly, has just said, you know what, I had no desire. I didn't want to do it. And if one pie doesn't want to do it, then it's not going to happen, especially The Undertaker with his pull in WWE. And at this point, could a cinematic match have worked? You know, it could have. Smoke and mirrors, right? It wouldn't have been so much of a wrestling match, more of a wrestling production. I don't have a problem with cinematic matches. I thought the Boneyard match is one of the matches of the year from the WWE point of view, so I don't have an issue with that at all. I just don't know if it really served the purpose anymore. Like I said, there was a period of time which people wanted it and thought it could happen. But over the last few years, I think most rational pro wrestling fans have thought, you know what, it had a possibility, it had a time, we don't want or need to see it anymore. It's better off playing out in our fantasies and in our imagination. So that didn't come to fruition. Now, of course, there's been discussion about Sting in this role in AEW. He is going to be a full-time character, but according to this report, Sting will not reportedly be taking any bumps during his run with AEW because of his history of neck issues and spinal stenosis. That is what caused his retirement in WWE. He had the run, he signed the contract, he had the match against Triple H at WrestleMania 31, then he had the match against Seth Rollins at Night of Champions. He actually had a match prior to Night of Champions where he teamed with John Cena to take on The Big Show and Seth Rollins on Raw. That was actually his only victory inside of a WWE ring. Nevertheless, it was that match against Seth Rollins. You know, it's out there, isn't it? You know, the two buckle bombs, the lack of feeling and the loss of feeling in his arms and legs, him falling to the ground, somehow being able to finish the match but that was his career over at that point. And even at that point, I mean, he's 61 years of age right now. That was 5 years ago, so he was, what, 56, 55 at that period of time. Even then, it was pushing it. The Undertaker's just retired. He's 55 years old. Even then, for Sting, it was pushing it. Why someone at that age was ever taking one buckle bomb, let alone two, even after the first one had caused a loss of feeling in his arms and legs, is absolutely insane. Nevertheless, it was the end of his career. And was it the way he wanted to go out? Probably not. But his final match was against Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. Not a bad way to go. The following year, he officially announced his retirement during his Hall of Fame induction for WWE. There had been rumours that essentially because of this injury, because of the spinal stenosis and the neck injury, he was basically told by the doctor, you should probably get surgery. Sting felt he didn't need it because he felt okay. And the reason he didn't get it, now I don't know if since then he has got it, but he didn't get it at the time because he felt that once he had that surgery, that was his in-ring career over, and he was still holding out for that potential last retirement match, the dream match, the cinematic match against The Undertaker, and it never happened. So I don't know the history if Sting actually did get the surgery eventually. All that we do know is that he's not taken any bumps in AEW. Now, I've seen that he's been uploaded to the AEW roster page on their website with an actual in-ring record, the whole 000 deal. He's not taking bumps. He's 61 years old. Even a healthy Sting at 61 years old should not be in the ring taking bumps and having matches. It just shouldn't happen. 2, he nearly got paralyzed and he nearly died in his last match. Why on earth would he take a bump or have a match at this point? Now, I've seen people say, well, they can do blood and guts, he can stay in the corner, or it can be cinematic. Just let Sting be a character. Why does he have to take bumps? Looks to me like he might be a mentor figure to Darby Allin. I'd love that. I'd love that. He doesn't need to be taking bumps. This is why the old timers come back. This is why the legends constantly come back, because you have a portion of fans going, we want to see it, we want to see more. And then when they come back, it's disappointing and we go, oh, they should have never come back. And you need to think a little bit ahead of these things. So I'm very excited for Sting in AEW. I'm excited to see Sting be Sting, because the Sting in WWE, was that really the Sting we loved and knew from WCW or even TNA? No, it wasn't. It was WWE's version of Sting, of what they thought Sting should be. Now, Sting wasn't happy with that run, and I think that's probably justified. There's a lot of discussion, isn't there, when it comes to his match against Triple H at WrestleMania 31. Should Sting have won? To me, I don't think it's black and white, and I know that might shock a few people because the general consensus is, Sting should have won at WrestleMania 31. He had to. It was his first match with the company. The storyline was defeating the Authority, and he lost, and they turned it into something it wasn't. Close to the end, when it was WWE versus WCW, at the time we didn't need that. Of course, then the match had the run-ins from D-Generation X and the NWO, which I actually loved. I thought that was nostalgic and fantastic. I thought it actually made the match. But people, rightfully so, say, Sting should have won, Sting should have won. And I do subscribe to that, knowing what we know now, Sting should have won. It really did hurt his run and character in the WWE. But I do understand WWE's perspective on this booking, because at the time, you have to know the context. At the time, there were plans in place and WWE thought this was a home run and signed, sealed and delivered. The plan was for Triple H to face The Rock next year at WrestleMania. And they just couldn't have Triple H take the loss, because why would The Rock face someone that lost last year at WrestleMania? You should have The Rock versus Sting, right? And I know wins and losses don't matter in WWE, but I do understand it. Is it something that actually they weren't too sure on Triple H or The Rock was going to happen, and they're trying to justify Triple H going over again? Possibly. But you have to remember what happened later on in the show as well. Later on in the show, you had a Triple H and Stephanie McMahon confrontation with The Rock and Ronda Rousey. How does Triple H come out of that and brag to the audience when he just got defeated by Sting earlier on in the show? It's difficult. I understand the booking dilemma there. Of course, knowing what we know now, the Rock thing never happened. But the Triple H did main event the following year at WrestleMania, was the WWE champion. So it's not black and white, that whole thing. But I understand Sting not being happy with it. I understand Sting wanted to... The reason he probably signed with the WWE was to do that Undertaker match, and he didn't get that. He didn't get that dream match, unfortunately for him. So I understand his perspective when it comes to AEW, that, you know what, this is going to be my last full-time gig. This is going to be my last run as a pro wrestler, not actually having a match, but being a character, and I want to make it worthwhile. And I'm excited for it. I'm absolutely excited for it. So I'm interested to see what happens when it comes to Sting in AEW. So let's talk about NXT. Let's talk about NXT TakeOver because, of course, last night it was NXT TakeOver War Games. Let's talk about the main event where the Undisputed Era defeated Team Pat McAfee at NXT TakeOver War Games 2020. Now, last night's NXT TakeOver War Games event closed with the Undisputed Era, which is, of course, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, and Bobby Fish, defeating the Kings of NXT, Pat McAfee, Pete Dunne, and the NXT Tag Team Champions, Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. The finish of the match saw Kyle O'Reilly pin Oney Lorcan after a top rope knee to a chair that was laying over Lorcan's face. Of course, going into the match, Team McAfee had the entry advantage. The bout featured several unbelievable spots, specifically from Pat McAfee, who once again, in his just second ever pro wrestling match, just absolutely stole the show in this match. I think actually the woman actually stole the show for the entirety of the card. We'll touch on them in a second. But Pat McAfee, again, the guy is a genius. The guy is a genius. He is arguably the best thing going on NXT, which says a lot about NXT right now. Some of the spots that he did, the Swanton Bomb off the cage, which he wasn't caught that well for, by the way. That has to hurt. He did a moonsault through the table, which had an Undisputed Era logo on it. Was it the right team winning? That is a tough one. I think it is a really tough one. That's a booking decision, I think, because this is a new faction in the Kings of NXT, and it's their first big match, and I'm big proponents of factions and superstars and pro wrestlers for that matter, that when it's their first big match, they have to win, because once you fail in those big matches over and over again, especially the first time, it's really hard to come back from that. Now, I understand the booking philosophy of when it comes to heels, you build them up, only to be cut down by the babyface. That's booking 101, and that's been going on for years. It's a tough one, though. For me, the fact that the Undisputed Era won says to me they ain't going anywhere when it comes to going to Raw or SmackDown. Of course, when Adam Cole lost the NXT Championship earlier this year to Keith Lee, and we saw Kyle O'Reilly wrestling for the NXT Championship, there was lots of discussion. Is this the time that we're going to see the Undisputed Era break up? Is this the time we're going to see the Undisputed Era go to Raw or SmackDown? There was discussions, wasn't there, that, was it Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish, they were turning heel, Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole were turning babyface. The entirety of the group's turned babyface. I don't know what's happened to that plan. If that report was accurate, doesn't look like it at the moment. So it's very interesting. Probably, look, if the Undisputed Era are sticking around, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't right now, obviously the right team won. If they're going to Raw or SmackDown, you would say, well, surely the other faction that's staying should win. When it comes to Pat McAfee, what's next for him? I mean, he has to be a regular character for me, because he's the best thing on the show. He absolutely is the best thing on the show. There was this CM Punk story when it comes to Pat McAfee over the last week or so, where someone asked him, do you watch NXT? What's your opinions? Should Pat McAfee commit full-time to pro wrestling? And CM Punk basically said, and I totally agree with him here, why should he commit? He's already the best thing on the show. So him coming in whenever he feels like it, it's obviously working for him. Would I like to see Pat McAfee on every single show? Absolutely. Fingers crossed that's the case. But he's absolutely right. And it is a bit of an indictment on the rest of the NXT roster that Pat McAfee is an ex-football player walking in with not a lot of pro wrestling experience, just pure pro wrestling fandom. And he's the best thing on the show. He's the best talker. I mean, he's the best talker. One of the best talkers in WWE. Big statement, but it's true. He's up there. He is fantastic. And he's obviously a natural athlete because of his time in the NFL. And he is just fantastic. He's absolutely worthy of that CM Punk praise. When it comes to NXT TakeOver, and this is why it's such an interesting thing, because I put a poll out on the community tab. Be sure to check these things out. We do quite a few community posts here on the channel. And I asked people, are you watching NXT TakeOver War Games tonight? Do you have any plans? I was initially expecting that most people would be. And I don't know if this is just the community that we have here on Wrestle News 365, but most people weren't. Most people weren't really either interested, they had other plans, or they just didn't have the time or desire to watch NXT TakeOver War Games, which is interesting because you do have to wonder, coming out of NXT TakeOver last night, do people really care? Do pro wrestling fans really care? At the moment, there is this weird feeling when it comes to me about NXT that AEW is just, it dominates them. And I know that might upset some people that are NXT fans, but most weeks AEW across the board beats them. Now, I'm not talking just total viewership, I'm talking pretty much every single demo, especially the demos that matter, the 18 to 49 and the 18 to 25s. They absolutely destroy them in that. The only demographic that NXT wins is that 50 plus, the old people that are just die-hard WWE stans forever. AEW destroys them pretty much every week. And I've said this quite a few times, and I was talking to Raj from WrestleWink last night, and we were basically saying the issue right now when it comes to NXT is they're on Wednesdays at this point. Their only purpose is to take viewers away from AEW, but not to the point of where Vince McMahon doesn't really care anymore if NXT wins or loses on Wednesday nights. Their sole purpose is to take viewers away from AEW. The experiment was done earlier this year with the NXT Super Tuesday shows. The NXT Super Tuesday shows showed everything you needed to know about WWE's viewpoint when it comes to NXT and AEW. Because NXT, when it was on Tuesdays, it had like 800,000 viewers, live viewers, one of their best ratings ever. Not the best, I don't think, but one of the best ratings ever. And then you had AEW on Wednesday that did over 1 million live viewers. Now, you would look at that, and a rational person would look at that and say, well, both shows benefit much, much more for being on separate nights. You can watch, a fan doesn't have to choose, and they can watch both shows live. WWE's main concern there wasn't the fact that, whoa, NXT, they did a good number on Tuesday. They had over 800,000 viewers. What they were really concerned about was, oh my gosh, AEW Dynamite did over 1 million live viewers. We can't have that. We can't have that. So the purpose of NXT right now is to take viewers away from AEW. It doesn't matter if they win or lose. I think they've kind of resigned themselves that they do and will lose most Wednesdays. And don't get me wrong, it was a great takeover last night. Every NXT takeover is great. I mean, it's one of the best chronologies of events ever, really, because there isn't a bad one. There really isn't a bad one. They're always great. They're absolutely fantastic. But does it really matter at this point? You expect them to be great. You expect them to have great matches, and they always deliver. Will it shift anything, though? Will it change anything for NXT? No. In terms of the war with AEW, will it change anything? No. In terms of the standing in WWE, will it change anything? No. So it's always fascinating with me, and NXT just has this weird feel right now, and I think I'm not alone when I think about that when it comes to the audience and the community we have here on this channel and just the wider pro wrestling community. I think it's kind of just like NXT's just there at this point, but I'm not sure what its identity is, and quite frankly, in the terms of WWE, I don't know what purpose it has anymore. Not to say get rid of it, because it obviously serves the purpose of entertainment, but in the grand scheme of things, is last night's takeover going to change anything? No. Was it a fantastic show? Absolutely, absolutely. So it's just fascinating NXT right now for me. Let's also talk about, since we're talking about NXT takeover, the match of the show for me was the Women's War Games match, and the NXT TakeOver War Games 2020 event actually opened with Team Candice LeRae, which of course consisted of Candice LeRae, Toni Storm, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez, defeating Team Shotzi Blackheart, which consisted of course, Shotzi Blackheart, Ember Moon, Rhea Ripley, and NXT Women's Champion Io Shirai. Now, the finish of this match is quite interesting because the finish saw Gonzalez pin Io Shirai after a single-arm powerbomb from the top rope through a ladder that was in the middle of the structure where the two rings meet. Now, of course, Team Blackheart actually had the entry advantage for this match. The match also featured interference from Indy Hartwell as well for Candice LeRae. Now, of course, considering that Raquel Gonzalez defeated Io Shirai, you would assume she is the next challenger for the NXT Women's Championship. For me, this was the match of the show. This was the match that stole the show. And it was almost difficult for the event to recover. I mean, it was a fantastic event, but once again, for the second year in a row, we had the second ever female War Games match, but once again, the females opened the show, and once again, I think they stole it. Now, last year's main event, when it came to the males, was really strong. Of course, it had Kevin Owens and had the insane Tommaso Ciampa air raid crash from the top of the cage with Adam Cole through the table. But for me, there was no doubt in my mind last night. The females absolutely stole the show. It should have been the main event. I think considering what the main event was and what the main event outcome was, should it have main evented? I think the only reason why the females didn't main event is because the heels won. I don't think they really didn't want to go off the air with the heels winning for whatever reason. They wanted to go off the air with the Undisputed Era winning and the babyface winning. That's what I think. But I think, nevertheless, it should have main evented. I don't think it really matters. One of the best spots of the show has to be Io Shirai diving off the top of the cage, wearing a trash can. She put a trash can over her head and dived off the top of the cage. Now, in terms of logic, that spot makes zero sense. It doesn't matter, though. It doesn't matter. People that will say, oh, it doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? Of course, you had the classic pro wrestlers brawling in the ring, looking up like they're waiting to catch Io Shirai. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. It was a fun spot and an absolutely fantastic spot. I thought the match was brilliant. Raquel Gonzalez is an absolute star. She is an absolute star. And to be honest, we talk about Impact Wrestling a lot on the channel, right? and the Impact Knockouts division being so strong, and it is one of the best women's divisions in the world. But WWE, specifically the NXT Women's Division, just look at the talent in this match. It's unbelievably strong as well. And I thought everyone in this match absolutely shone. And I think the right team won it, despite not having the advantage. I think it was the right call. You've got to look back when it comes to the heel females in NXT. They haven't been winning a lot recently. Of course, that comes with having a babyface champion. Nevertheless, I think it was the right call. And it absolutely, no doubt in my mind, stole the show. So really enjoyed that one. Continuing with TakeOver, of course, we have a new NXT North American champion in Johnny Gargano. He is your new NXT North American champion. Last night at NXT TakeOver War Games, Gargano captured the title by winning a triple threat match over Damian Priest and former champion Leon Ruff. Now, this is Gargano's third reign with the North American Championship, which is, of course, is more than anyone else. Ruff won the championship during the November 11 episode of NXT on the USA Network with a huge upset that nobody saw coming over Gargano. Now, the match featured interference from several masked men who are wearing the Scream masks that we've seen used in this storyline. This has been the storyline with Johnny Gargano, hasn't it, on NXT, is that he's got this backup, or the Gargano family, along with Candice LeRae, have this backup with men dressed in Scream masks. Now, Priest took out 6 men until there was one that knocked him out with a steel pipe. Now, this was later revealed after the match to be none other than Austin Theory. Of course, Austin Theory quit NXT recently. Now, the post-show segment saw Gargano celebrate with Austin Theory after this reveal. I thought the match featured some nice spots. Was it great? I think, you know, it was a TakeOver match. It was good. Was it amazing? No. Was it the best Johnny Gargano match you've ever seen at TakeOver? No. I thought it featured some nice stuff. I'm actually quite a fan of Leon Ruff as well. Damian Priest, we've said it a million times on it, massive star. I think maybe the reason he lost the North American Championship is because he's got to be bound for the main roster really soon. He is Vince McMahon's dream. So I have no doubt in my mind he will be heading to Raw or SmackDown soon. And to be honest, even if he doesn't, whenever he does, he is going to be a massive star and make a ton of money for WWE and for himself with that run on the main roster. He's going to do fantastic. In terms of the Austin Theory reveal, I like the reference to "It was me, Austin. It was me, Austin, all along." That was fun. I just don't really care. I know I might sound really callous. It was just kind of like, oh, it was Austin Theory. All right. Okay, cool. I mean, glad to see him doing something. He is one of those people as well that was caught up in that whole... I don't know if he actually got the full speaking out allegations, but there were things discussed about him. There were pictures sent out and about inappropriate stuff during his time on the Indies. It's difficult to overcome that, I think, as a fan. It's the same when you watch Velveteen Dream. It's the same when you watch these guys in the NXT UK, whether it's Jordan Devlin or Joe Coffey. It's difficult to overcome that, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but it's there. It does play in your head. It does think, you know, should these guys really be on TV? I mean, they're only allegations, but it's difficult. It's really difficult, and I still have a bit of an issue overcoming that. I don't know if that's other people. I mean, I know a lot of people will say, well, you know, they're allegations until they're proved. I know it's difficult, but that's just... Putting that aside, his revelation that it was Austin Theory, okay, you know what I mean? That was about it, really. Arguably one of the biggest stories coming out of NXT TakeOver last night, of course, was the return of KARRION Kross. At least it was teased. He didn't actually appear at NXT TakeOver. But KARRION Kross and Scarlett are set to return to NXT very soon. At last night's NXT TakeOver War Games event, there was a segment where Vic Joseph and Wade Barrett were showing off the new War Games toy set from Mattel at the announce table, but then the lights started flickering inside the Capitol Wrestling Center at the Performance Center in Orlando as the show cut to a vignette hyping up KARRION Kross's return. The vignette was very quick, very quick. It featured a buzzard and the signature TikTok warning from Kross and Scarlett. Of course, KARRION Kross has been out of action since suffering a separated shoulder during his NXT Championship victory over Keith Lee at the NXT TakeOver 30 event back in August during SummerSlam weekend. He had to relinquish the title because of this shoulder injury the following episode of NXT on August 26. He's been off TV ever since that night. Now, KARRION Kross and Scarlett have been posting several recent images on social media showing his recovery process, and he declared early in November that he was, quote, absurdly stronger than he was before the injury. Now, the time frame about this kind of works, to be honest. The issue with shoulder injuries, you can be out 3 months, you can be out 12 months. They are so delicate. It looks like KARRION Kross is about on schedule to return in a couple of months, which is fantastic. He's returning imminently. This was what Triple H hyped up in the pre-show media call, that he's coming very soon. I would suggest he's probably going to appear on NXT on Wednesday, I would think. it's a big deal. He got a mammoth monster push in his NXT career. He really did. I think he had, what, was it like 7 or 9? I mean, it was single-digit matches, I think, before winning the NXT Championship, and it was a cruel twist of fate that in that match he got injured and then had to relinquish it in the following episode. The irony being that Finn Balor wins it. Not only, of course, Finn Balor, one of the most famous winning championships, and having to relinquish it the following night with the Universal Championship. It felt like fate was balancing itself out there, but then Finn Balor gets injured in his first title defense against Kyle O'Reilly, and he still isn't cleared to come back. He's going to be on NXT on Wednesday. I don't know if he's been cleared. Maybe they might do a double return kind of deal where Finn Balor is back and he's healthy and he's ready to go, and then he gets interrupted by KARRION KROSS and they feud. I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll have to wait and see. Nevertheless, big deal for NXT. I'm glad to see KARRION KROSS is on his way to returning. He is a big star waiting to happen. He is one of those people that, along with the likes of Damian Priest, I think he will do well on Raw and SmackDown despite success in NXT. That's rare, but I think KARRION KROSS will be an exception to that rule. Now, speaking of NXT TakeOver as well, it feels like most takeovers at this point, but especially TakeOver War Games, you get injuries. Out of these takeovers, again, we know they're going to be good, but almost as much as the certainty as the high quality of TakeOver is the certainty of injuries. We get it all the time coming out of these takeovers because they're so hard-hitting that you're always going to get injuries. So Triple H had a lot to say in the post-show media call following NXT TakeOver War Games. First off, he gave us thoughts on the show, as well as discussing the upcoming returns of KARRION KROSS and Finn Balor. Triple H said, quote, NXT fired on all cylinders tonight, and once again, I thought an amazing War Games. The show was a bit interested in coming together over the last few months, as everything in 2020 all the way through whether any of the structure would fit into this building. I was really happy with how everything turned out. A couple of injuries, but nothing too serious, and again, it's why I think it's the best in-ring brand in the business. I also want to give a quick shout out to Ariel Helwani. He actually appeared on the pre-show. For being on the pre-show tonight, his analysis, his point of view, I think adds a lot. His credibility, his positioning. Ariel's incredibly smart, one of the most knowledgeable fans of what we do. When he spoke about KARRION KROSS, Triple H said, quote, it's going to be an exciting few months here as we roll into 2021. As you saw tonight, TikTok, KARRION KROSS is back. Finn returns. We'll be back firing to compete, and that's a good thing. I can't wait to do it and kick 2021's ass. Now, to be honest, those quotes are interesting. Does Finn Balor and KARRION KROSS returning to NXT in-ring strengthen the brand? Absolutely. They're back and firing on all cylinders. Is it going to do anything when it comes to the AEW NXT war? No. It just isn't. Nevertheless, it is going to improve NXT and maybe help improve the show. A better quality show. I'm all for it. So let's talk about the Candice LeRae injury, because Candice LeRae appeared to be injured during that women's War Games match that we were talking about. Triple H confirmed that LeRae was getting checked out during the time of the call. He suspected that she suffered a broken arm. He noted that there were mainly bumps and bruises for the other talent, which he called a success considering the dangers that comes from these types of shows. He said about Candice LeRae there and about this injury, quote, Candice is getting checked out now, getting checked out and getting an x-ray, so I don't have a status update on that yet, but you are correct. It looks like possibly a broken arm. We're not sure yet, but we'll see where that goes. Bobby Fish got a little bit of a laceration on his elbow, but we're not exactly sure, but that's just the elbow. So we're kind of just waiting and seeing, but other than that, it's just bumps and bruises. I hold my breath on these kind of shows every single time. If that's the extent of it, then we did well. When it comes to Candice LeRae and the broken arm, that sucks. That really sucks, considering her team that she captained got the victory last night. I don't know if it really damages what she would be doing in NXT going forward, though, because it looks like Raquel Gonzalez is going to be facing Io Shirai for the NXT Women's Championship going forward, so don't think that kind of impacts Candice LeRae too much. Of course, we've got this reveal of the extended Gargano family now of Austin Theory and these masked Scream Men, so she can still appear on TV every single week. She'll just be in a sling. She can cut promos. She can be in Johnny Gargano's corner, and she can do whatever she wants. She can be entertaining, do those Gargano family at home promos, vignette things that I'm not massive on. They don't really do it for me. Nevertheless, broken arm sucks. How long will she be out? These things, again, like with the shoulder, it depends how quickly she heals. Nevertheless, I'm not sure it takes her off TV completely. I'm not sure it greatly impacts what she would be doing in NXT apart from having matches. So if that is the biggest injury of the show, I guess they've kind of done well. Sucks to see that she got an injury after such a big win for her team. Nevertheless, I think she'll still be on NXT TV, so I don't really think that impacts everything too much. And finally, we'll talk about Elias, because there's potentially a character change for Elias going forward in WWE after he got electrocuted on Monday Night Raw. Now, Elias addressed fans for the first time Sunday, nearly a week after being electrocuted in kayfabe, we must stress first, during the Symphony of Destruction match against Jeff Hardy last week on Monday Night Raw. Through a video released on his Twitter account, Elias teased that he was going to change up his character and possibly stop playing guitar on WWE programming. He said, quote, "Hello, I am Elias, and I would like to take this time to talk about the horrific electrocution this past week on Monday Night Raw. Many of you loyal fans and universal truthers out there have sent me nothing but love, and I appreciate every one of you. And for those of you that said Elias deserves it, I just have to say, screw you. The doctors told me that this kind of voltage could have killed an average man, but I'm no average man. That's why they call me Extraordinary Elias." Now, I really hope they don't start calling him the Extraordinary Elias. Do you remember with Finn Balor when they had that just awful thing that the announcers would say over and over again every time he made the entrance? The extraordinary man that can do extraordinary things, or whatever it was. It was awful. It was awful. So I hope they don't start calling him the Extraordinary Elias, because that sounds like a freak show, carnival sideshow kind of deal, presenting the Extraordinary Elias. I mean, I honestly would not put it past him to start doing the carnival gimmick. We saw it in Impact Wrestling back in the day. Remember Kazani as well on SmackDown back in 2008? Elias, I mean, we'd be a radical character change, wouldn't it? Going from a guitar-wielding musician to a carnival guy, but, you know, let's not rule that out. Nevertheless, Elias said that he had regained full function in his hands by beating all the odds. He said, quote, "The doctors have told me I may no longer be able to play the guitar again." He said, "Despite all of these odds and thanks to modern medicine, I have gained full function in my hands, and when I was electrocuted, something in Elias did change. And on top of that, I have seen visions, and I now know my purpose in life, and I now have that knowledge. I'll be sharing my gift with you." Now, this definitely is a character change. It has to be, because they're implying he's not going to be playing guitar. They're implying that he is kind of the Extraordinary Elias. He's some kind of psychic, which kind of goes into the Extraordinary Elias kind of deal, right? I mean, you've seen those like magicians and all that kind of stuff. Now, is he going to be the magician guy from WWE in the mid-90s? I hope not. I hope he's going to be pulling, you know, whatever out of his mouth. Nevertheless, it looks like we're going to get a character change for Elias. I'm not against it. I'm not against it. We'll have to wait and see what it is. A lot of the times at the moment when it comes to character change in WWE, they're not the best. Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard aren't batting a very good average when it comes to characters at the moment. Roman Reigns, bang on. They got it completely right, but it feels like that's a bit of a one-off. So, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to Elias. I like Elias when it comes to the guitar. I like Elias hitting people over the backs with guitar. I mean, in the past, you know, you'd have hit him over the head with guitars. It doesn't happen anymore for obvious reasons, for right reasons. But if this is a character change, you know, I'm willing to see what they do first before I completely destroy it. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see on that. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to this character change for Elias going forward. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the news stories we have spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, NXT, Impact Wrestling. We've got a load of Impact Wrestling videos coming today on the channel as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about pro wrestling here on the channel. We have a great community here, so leave your comments below and get involved with everyone in the comment section. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.